Hey guys, how's it going? I forgot to make a planner for my summoner build. I was talking about the build, but even though I showed some of the things, you cannot actually follow the entire, Paragon board or items just by looking at it. I think it gets a little bit confusing, so I made a planner. And in this planner, I got my legendary aspects. Yeah, so all of the aspects that are here are the ones that I'm using right now. So the only aspects that I feel that I'm kinda, I'm still working around with, like maybe I change it, maybe I keep it, is this one that gives you up to 30% more damage. And this of course works with Ring of Mandown. The purpose of the build is to increase Ring of Mandown's damage that doesn't scale through minion damage. So just as a TLDR of my build, minion damage is basically useless because the damage, minions damage, unfortunately, they don't scale well since the base damage is so low. But Ring of Mandown is the way to be playing minions, in my opinion. So if you follow this build, you are making a you are making a character that gets to improve, to amplify Ring of Mandown damage, and you can do so through your character's modifier or your character's, affixes, I guess. So vulnerable damage, critical strike damage, I think damage to close enemies, damage to healthy, or increased damage percentage while healthy, or damage to injured enemies. Everything should work, I suppose. And so everything you can get to put on your gear that has to do with increasing damage against, if you can apply vulnerability, which you can with Corpse Tendrils and Bone Prison, then you should get increased damage to vulnerable enemies. And then you can also get increased damage to close enemies in a few pieces of gear. But then one of the best multipliers is of course vulnerable damage, and then the other is critical strike damage, because the build's critical strike chance is very high since we have Bone Storm and then the Corpse Tendrils aspect. So we want to make Ring of Mandown crit through your minions. So yeah, this is a bit of a TLDR. And then oh, of course, so yeah, I have the skill tree. Callous Indict, unfortunately, is kind of useless because you always take damage, and whenever you take damage, it gets, I don't know, it gets kind of strange because you lose Callous Indict, and then out of nowhere, you don't have the ultimate passive here anymore, and you always take damage from somewhere, so you can actually remove Callous Indict and try something else, maybe increased life or a bit more damage with Bone Storm, but it's kind of almost zero damage anyways, because this doesn't deal damage with this build anyways. So I guess Callous Indict can be good if you, because even though we are not scaling the minion damage, the attack speed scaling is actually pretty good for cooldown reduction, since we are using the Decryptify to remove cooldown from my Bone Prison, Corpse Tendrils, and Blood Mist. So yeah, I think it's pretty bad, Callous Indict, but when it works pretty well because it's a lot of attack speed, so it's cooldown reduction. Anyways, the Paragon board is different from what I showed on the video because this one I crafted kind of quickly. Maybe there are a few better ways to go about this. Right now I'm thinking about linking this part instead of going through this way, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, this is like a, just a an example of the builds that I'm using. I'm using all the glyphs correctly. In fact, I've added another glyph up top here, which is the territorial. And that looks pretty decent. It increases damage to close targets, and I still have to test this out, but I think it works with Ring of Mandown if your character is close to the enemies, maybe. I don't know, but if it does work, then it's pretty good because you also get damage reduction. So even though damage reduction is kind of useless in the very high tier content, the increased damage from territorial might be useful. But of course, I had another option. I could go with you know, where is it? Exploit for vulnerable damage increase. So this can be also pretty good. So maybe Imbiber, which is damage while healthy, and up to my knowledge, you know, I haven't tested this out extensively, but I think all the damage to healthy and damage to close enemies, they work with Ring of Mendown. But yeah, it requires more testing. But anyway, so the link will be in the description. The Paragon board is pretty much set here. You can follow something like this. You can change a few things around, of course. Oh, I had 1 extra point. I have 1 extra point here. I can put it somewhere. I'm sure I can find something, maybe plus 2% maximum life. There you go. So yeah, I'll be linking this on the description, and it pretty much has 99% similar to my build. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. If you happen to also try to kill Oberlilith, I'd like to know if you killed it, because I'm still trying, but you know, as I said, I'm changing things around. Sometimes I remove the Blood Orb aspect to get cooldown reduction on Blood Mist, because sometimes I am almost killing Lilith, and then I have 1 extra cooldown on my Blood Mist, and then I die because I didn't have the Blood Mist cooldown reduction that triggers with Corpse Explosion or whatever. Whenever, I think it says whenever you consume a corpse, you reduce the cooldown by 0.5 seconds on Blood Mist or something like that. So that one aspect might be better than this one. But then if you remove, you know, the Blood Orb aspect out of nowhere, you lose a lot of damage, because this Paragon tree here, it has a bunch of damage when you pick up a Blood Orb. So everything here gives basically damage when you pick up a Blood Orb. And so to fight Lilith, this is kind of decent, because it both heals your character by 15% and it gives you damage. So it's all a matter of what kind of content you are trying to do. And there are not that many, you know, content things to do right now besides high tier nightmare dungeons, PvP, and Lilith. But overall, I think, yeah, the Blood Orb mechanic should work nicely. And by the way, the Shadow I've added the Shadow Mage to the build because I realized that every 5th attack he fires an extra projectile, and that projectile also reduces cooldown since he procs you know, the Gripify. So I guess every 5 attacks there is an extra chance for cooldown reduction. But I don't know, you can use anything here. You can use Frost Mages with Essence Generation. If you are spamming the Gripify, you run out of Essence. But it's pretty difficult since it only costs 10 Essence. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be talked about, but for now, that's pretty much it. And again, I'm gonna link this in the description. You guys can look this and follow it. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next video. Bye bye.